Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us again. Today, as you can see, I have Anne Marie Dewitt from
Mhm.
Fireside Games. Thank you, Anne Marie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, first of all, what exactly is your title at Fireside?
So officially, it's Chief Executive Officer. It's mainly because I handle the business side, business, advertising, marketing, promotion, all of the uh, you know, bookkeeping, the legal aspects, IP, that sort of thing. And I do work with Justin. Justin's the chief creative officer. So he's in charge really of game design and look and feel of games and that sort of thing. Everything we do though is very hand in glove, so I may be, kind of tasked with certain things. He may be tasked with other things, but we're very collaborative and talk through, all of the issues, own them all together.
Okay. Oh, very good. All right. Well, we'll get into that some more in a little bit later. So, first of all, just tell me, so where are you from? Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Temple, Texas, down in Central Texas, is about an hour north of Austin. And but I lived there 6 months, and we moved around a lot. So my growing up spanned living in Texas, Oklahoma, Illinois, and Indiana. I really spent my formative years in Indiana, Mishawaka, just outside of South Bend, from sixth grade through the beginning of my junior year. I went to 3 different high schools. So I just, like when people ask me where I grew up, I'm like everywhere, but, I guess my fondest memories are really of Mishawaka. Such good people, such a wonderful community. We had the best neighborhood. We had about, I don't know, 20 kids that, we all just grew up together, and we would, um, you know, when we were growing up, our parents would just send us out and say, come home when the streetlights come back on. And so, we were a little gang, and we would just hang out together. We had a swimming pool and tennis courts, and there was a corn maze nearby, and so, we just had a blast. It was just such a good little group. So I have really fond memories of Indiana and Mishawaka and those people.
So, obviously, out of all the places you moved around to and lived, that was your favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I do love Austin too. I've lived in Austin now the longest. We moved here in 98, and we had one year where we temporarily moved to San Antonio, and then a year that we spent on the road traveling, doing one of our first tours. And we went to 70 different stores, and we rented the house out and everything, so we weren't here for that year. And those 2 years, Austin changed dramatically. When we came back, we're like, oh, is this the same place we left? So, but yeah, so that's the longest I've lived anywhere.
Okay. So, you said you grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of kids and you played a lot of things. Did you play a lot of board games, actually?
um my family played board games, and mainly with my grandparents. And they were and that's a lot of times the things I would ask for Christmas were board games. There was one that I remember in particular, that was called Electronic Detective. And with that one, you were trying to guess who committed the crime. And so you could ask this computer yes no questions. So it's kind of like 20 questions, but with this little computer that was programmed in. And that was my favorite game. I just loved Electronic Detective. And then Clue, I really liked playing Clue. I wasn't the best at Clue, but I loved it. So that and Scrabble, but so we played those. And then video games, when video games came out, we kind of switched over to video games for a while. And it was really Catan that brought me back into board gaming. I was like, oh my gosh, things have really changed. So yeah, but that was a long time ago.
So, after high school and growing up in Indiana there, so what happened then? What did you do then?
So we moved back to Texas. It's funny. We actually, I ended up graduating from the high school that I started kindergarten in. So ended up graduating with the same people I started, K-12 with. And so that was Kaufman, Texas. And then I was only there a year and a half. And uh, I was in like anything that I could join in high school. I was a cheerleader. I played basketball. I played softball. I loved softball. If there was a sport, I played flag football. You know, if there was a sport I was trying out for it. I was on the speech and debate team. I was. I wrote for the newspaper. In fact, the school I graduated from, they didn't have a newspaper, and so I wanted to start one. The pushback I got from the principal and, you know, the administration, the school board, like they called me in and asked me, why do you want to start a new, you know, it was like, to inform people, like, what are you trying to hide, you know? I'm like, so I ended up being like, that's too much trouble. I'm not, you know, it was supposed to be, you know, something fun. I wasn't trying to, you know, call people on the carpet, but it did make me wonder, like, somebody probably should, like, maybe the real newspaper needs to look into this. But anyway, yeah, so I was very active in school. I loved, you know, being active. And then when I graduated, I went to my parents' alma mater, which was Abilene Christian University out in West Texas, and had excellent teachers. Really enjoyed my education. Lots of great people there as well. So I should pause there in case you wanted to ask any questions.
Yeah, so what did you study in college?
Oh, I studied speech language pathology. So in my first career I was a speech language pathologist. And that's when I was growing up in Mishawaka, my best friend's sister was a speech language pathologist. And she would come home and tell stories about the cute kids that she was working with and the, you know, and how she helped their lives with speech disorders and that sort of thing. And I loved language. English was my favorite subject in school. And so I wanted to do something that helped people, but also involved language. And so helping people with speech and language disorders, and I ended up falling in love with voice therapy as well. So I pursued my master's degree at ACU also, and was a speech language pathologist in school settings and in hospitals for 7 years, mainly in schools. I love working with schools, with children, especially that pre-K 5-year-old. They're just so like open and excited about everything, you know, and you need some excitement when you're talking with kids and trying to elicit language. You know, it helps to have that excitement and a desire to speak to something. So yeah, really enjoyed those kids.
Okay, so you graduated from school, got your bachelor's and master's, and you're working in speech pathology. So how did it come about that you met Justin?
Oh, so he likes to say we met in rehab, and that's because I was working at the rehabilitation department at Valley Medical Center up in Renton, Washington, outside of Seattle, and so I was a speech language pathologist there, and I actually worked on some stroke cases with his mother. His mother was an occupational therapy assistant, and so I kind of got to know her first, and then he was working there. They were just starting to computerize their patient intake processes, and they didn't know a lot about computers, and so he was brought in to show them, you know, how to operate a computer, you know, and different programs, and they were trying to kind of use word processing programs as a way of doing the patient input. I'm sure they're, you know, much more sophisticated tools now, but they were trying to figure out, you know, how to use the existing tools to help with patient intake. And so he was there. And in fact, the first time that we had a couple of lunches together, and the first time that we sat down and ate, actually the first 2 times, I noticed that he had no meat. He was a vegetarian, you know, and I'm a meat eater, you know, and I was like, I'm not sure, like, you know, I'm come from Texas, we're barbecue, and, you know, I don't know. And so, but he was just like, no, I'm just trying to eat healthy, you know, and we talked to, you know, each other for a long time, and I really wanted to make sure I had a lot of girlfriends in Seattle before I started dating, and so, you know, I wasn't wanting you know, to date or anything like that. And he had overheard me, you know, saying that to someone, And so he waited a long time, to ask me out. By the time he did, my first reaction was like, but I'm over you already, I thought you were never going to ask me out. So, but yeah, we ended up going to, we didn't have, neither one of us had money for dinner. And so we ended up going to this little like Denny's place. I can't remember what it's called now, but anyway, we just drank coffee, and I didn't drink coffee at all then. And so I'm sitting there like drinking cup after cup after cup, and and I'm like starting to buzz. I'm like, I had no idea caffeine. Like I don't know if this is the caffeine or I'm excited about Justin. But yeah, I like this feeling.
So you guys have been married for how long now?
26 years this July 9th. So yeah.
Okay. Well, very good. So after you got married or whatever, you started your first your relationship together. At what point did you all of a sudden decide that the two of you are going to start a publishing company?
So that took a while. So like in the year 2000, we played Catan together with some friends that were into board gaming, and our eyes just lit up. And so we started actively playing board games with groups, and Justin, when he was a kid growing up, he would design board games, and then when he got into video games, he kind of stopped designing board games, and then we played Catan, and he was so excited by that re-energized his love of designing. And so he worked on several things. Castle Panic was one of them, and he had this like pizza box that on the top, the lid, he had some paper that had the arcs and rings and just this crudely colored red, green, blue, and just written in the swordsman, knight, and archer rings. And we would we'd go play games, and Justin would ask the friends to like help play test this game, and it got to the point where he would just like bring it along, and he wouldn't ask them, they would ask us like, hey, can we play that fun castle game? And so we'd bring it out, and we started realizing that like people are genuinely interested in this game. They're really having fun. It's not just like this pastime, and they're not just being nice to us. And so we thought about like possibly considering pitching it to an existing game company. And at the time, there really wasn't a place that it fit nicely. We thought about Steve Jackson Games. They're here in Austin as well. And Justin had started becoming friends through another online group with Phil Reed, the CEO. He wasn't the CEO at the time. I think he was the production lead or something like that. And so they had just started developing a friendship, and Justin thought about pitching it to them, but he felt like, it's not quite the right fit. They have an edgier, kind of take on the market. And so we just couldn't find anyone. And then we started looking at all of his games that he was developing, and we're like, you have like a brand here. This isn't just, a one-off game. You have a number of things that we think, could be, marketable. At least these things hang together. These designs kind of hang together in a way that is creating a brand. And, so we decided to just go ahead and just save up money. We basically saved, I think it was we saved his salary and lived on what I was making, and so we just pocketed everything. And then he was working in the tech industry, and he got laid off when we were $5,000 short of being able to pay for, I guess it was really just the shipping. We couldn't afford the shipping. And so Justin, during this time period, had worked for Steve Jackson Games and didn't work for them. This was a period of years. And so Phil had been wanting Justin to come back to Steve Jackson Games for a while. And so Justin said, okay, well, I need $5,000. I'll work till I have $5,000. And so he ended up working much longer than that, because Justin never likes to say quit or upset anyone, And so so we finally, got to the point where we're like, okay, Phil, Fireside Games needs at least one full-time employee. And So we took all the money that we saved, and I remember I was just about to write out, the check for the first print run for Castle Panic, and Justin said, "Wait, are we sure we want to do this? Like, we worked hard to save all the." And I'm like, I'd rather write this check and lose this money than not ever know, what could happen. So it was a risk worth taking, and we sold out of that first print run in 10 weeks. And we were scrambling to get like the next print run in. That sold out. Oh, I'm sorry, what, Tim?
How many was the first print run?
So it was in talking with distributors, we collapsed the first print run to 3,500 units.
Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, 3,500 sold out in 10 weeks, and then we had a 5,000 unit print run, and those sold out in 3 months. And then we did like a 10,000, and so we graduated it up, gradually, and we do still go through periods where, we haven't printed enough, and there will be, little spikes in sales that catch us off guard, but it's been a strong, steady seller, for coming up on 11 years now.
So actually, that means the company has been in existence now for 11 years total?
Yeah, so technically on paper, we incorporated Fireside Games in 2007, and then Justin started working full-time on Castle Panic in 2008, and then the game hit the market in 2009. So we've had a game on the market since 2009.
And then you said you noticed when you were designing games, or Justin had a bunch of games, that you had a brand here. So tell me a little bit more about that. What do you consider the brand of Fireside Games?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the brand of Fireside Games is very family. I'm sorry. Can you hang on just a second? Justin, is it okay if you can halt on printing?
Yes,
for
I
a
will
little bit?
stop printing
Okay.
things.
Okay, thank you. So Fireside Games is family friendly. Focuses on accessible mechanics, and focuses on adult play that children enjoy. So it's geared toward adults, and then we invite the children to the table. So, and then we have developed one game right now, My First Castle Panic, which is geared toward preschool kids. And that's the first game that we have developed that is for kids specifically. So everything else is designed for, as, gateway games, encouraging people into the hobby. We kind of want the people who have been playing, Scrabble and Clue and all the things that, we grew up on, and they want to have a good experience moving into hobby games, that that Fireside Games is kind of a nice leverage into hobby games.
Oh, very good. And then you said, so that's your brand, which is very good. But you now are starting, instead of just Justin designing the games, or you as well, because I know you're a game designer as well, you started taking on other games and just being a strict publisher instead of designer / publisher. So tell me a little bit about that process, and what was the decision to start doing that?
So we found out that we really needed to kind of accelerate the number of games and kind of the publishing flywheel for us, and trying to make sure that we always had a game that we could be talking with our fans about. And so we wanted to try to open that up to people who had designs that we felt like kind of fit with what we have, so that it fit as a family, as a brand. And so we started looking at submissions. It actually started internally with an employee who made Here Kitty Kitty. And so that was the first foray in, and that was really nice because we were able to have a lot of tight game development just inside the company. And so that encouraged us to start looking, at other designs. And we go through a lot of pitches. We're very picky, about what fits. Some people misunderstand our brand and think that it's just simple mechanics, and it's a lot more about the experience, and so it's been somewhat challenging. Our most successful games have been the games that we have developed in-house, and I think it's that we're able to, you know, stick most closely to the brand identity. It's been challenging, kind of making sure we have, you know, we pick up games that that are outside submissions that really work. And with the flood of games, it's not paying as much, you know, to just be on, you know, on a regular production cycle. That's could be a good recipe for just, you know, squandering what you're making off the more successful games. So we've actually kind of, you know, changed the way that we're looking at picking up new games, and we've pulled back and are being a lot more judicious about what we pick up. It's basically, it has to have a reason to be on the market and fit the brand, you know. So, you know, there are just so many games to choose from right now, and the evergreens do so well, you know, Castle Panic and that full line, and Here Kitty Kitty, and, you know, my first Castle Panic are doing so well. You know, I don't want to take, you know, the returns from those and, you know, and burn it up on a game that's not, you know, not going to do as well. So especially with all the competition. So, and, you know, we've had some games that you know, we're able to just like basically pick up and go, and other games where it's taken so much development, you know, I've thought, well, if we were going to spend this much time developing, shouldn't it be, you know, one of the, you know, the games in your back pocket that, you know, we know we're going to sell. So, you know, it's we've had ups and downs with you know, picking up other titles.
Right. Of course. I mean, there's always going to be ups and downs in the industry. Everything can't be a home
Yeah.
run. So,
Yeah.
things I want to talk about, since since it is your company and you and Justin are in it together, like as husband and wife as a team, but you are still an executive in the company. What I want to know is, like, how is it being a woman in the industry, or and slash how are there a lot others, like what is it like being a woman CEO of a publishing company in the gaming industry?
That's a good question. Um, so it's hard for me to know what, I mean, there's so many challenges in the industry right now that it's, you know, it's hard to know, like, am I experiencing any more or any less, you know, than another CEO, you know, than a male CEO might be, you know, experiencing right now.
See, but this is the thing, Anne Marie, what I'm trying to get to, what I would like to know, is there, do you have peers, or do you have networking? Are you able to talk to other women who are at the same level you are and maybe find that question out?
Oh, right. Yeah. So I do have a network of other, you know, female CEOs that I can talk to. I'll be honest and say I haven't leveraged that as much as I should. I've you know, some of the relationships that I've had have been you know, in other areas of the industry, you know, retailers that I'm close with, some media personalities that I'm close with, you know, some folks in the toy association, you know, and so I would say that that I haven't taken advantage of that opportunity as well as I could, you know, and that's one of the things that has crossed my mind lately is how I do need to engage, you know, kind of more of the women in the industry, you know, and to you know, get I don't know, get a better perspective on, you know, kind of what the wide experience is right now. My experience has been so fireside centric, you know. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think there's more to learn, more opportunities for learning with other, you know, female executives and other females that are, you know, non-executives, and what are their experiences in the industry. And, you know, to be honest with you, I don't know that I have a full perspective on it. So.
Right, and that's one of the reasons I'm asking that, because especially, you know, now what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and all this, and it seems like there has been a big social movement going on in America now, and this big wave, and so it's like all different groups, what they may consider marginalized groups, whether it's minorities, women, or other kind of groups. And I was just wondering if you personally have ever felt that you were perhaps, say, marginalized or treated differently in the industry?
Um, let's see. Let me think through and see if I can think of any. I mean, there was an incident at a distributor show where there was a male retailer who was inappropriate with me, and I was able to talk to the distributor about it, and felt that they handled that very well, and felt like not only was I not going to have to face that harassment anymore, that no other women were going to have to face it. And so now it was on the radar. Now people, were able to, have any conversations they needed to have with that retailer. And, and I felt like that was well handled.
Or perhaps say, like, even if you're going to meetings or something, because I know it happened to me quite a bit when I was younger and stuff, but if I, say, walk up to a counter or somewhere with, say, a white person and I'm the boss, people automatically say, look at them. Do you ever feel that way perhaps with you and Justin, if you two are together going to whatever, and people may all of a sudden focus their attention to Justin, assuming that the man is in charge? Do you know what I mean?
You know what? Now that you mention it, yeah. So 10 years ago that happened. I mean, it's been such a long time. I have to really think back to, those early experiences. I mean, now I'm very much well known as, kind of the business side of Fireside. So people don't make that mistake anymore, like, ever. But you're right. I mean, now that you jogged my memory, I remember very distinctly, we were going to be interviewed. I can't remember what game it was for. I mean, it may have been Castle Panic, but anyway, the interviewer was a male, and was very aggressive in ignoring me, and setting me aside. And I mean, it just, it was like, wow, this could not be more obvious. This is because I'm a woman, but I always think of it as, that's his problem. That's not my problem. So I don't, I didn't take it on. I thought, well, strange, I can still do my job, and Justin's always also been very good about, like, if it's a question, like, he doesn't know the business side as much, so he's always really good about, acknowledging that, okay, I'll answer the creative questions, but if you have business questions, those need to go to Anne Marie, like, that it's just, that's how it is. So we've always kind of just tried to make sure that we maintain our reality, and we don't give that away to a misogynist reality. The reality of our business is that I take care of the business. So if you want to talk about that, then, I'm the one to talk to. And that person, years later, remembered that and came to me and apologized for it. Which I was very impressed with, and thought, okay, I'm just going to give you, leeway. But I think that's why I think I have a hard time remembering some microaggressions, because they don't land for me. Like, to me, they're always about that person and not about me, and so I don't internalize it. And so for me, that's not a reality. My reality is that I'm fully capable of doing the work that I'm doing, and you can either come along and we'll do business together, or you can be left behind.
And since you first came in 2007, you said you incorporated.
Yeah.
Started that, so a little over 11 years and stuff. What is the change you've seen? Have you seen a growing number of women in executive positions and minorities in executive positions in different things? Like, have you seen the industry sort of change and become a little bit more diversified?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. When we started off, most of the women were, I mean, there were some executives at the time. I mean, Kristen Looney, for example, she's been around for, a good long time, longer than I've been in the industry. Carrie Breitenstein, she's been around. And so there were a lot of women who approached it the same way I did and were at the same, but a lot of the women were considered booth babes, so yeah, so it would be, it would be hard to, like, you were either an executive or you were like a booth babe, and it was hard to, like, um, kind of break out of that. But I think that as the industry kind of exploded, as gaming became more ubiquitous, there's just a flood of women, and it's just kind of, it, again, kind of going back to what is reality. Like, reality is that, women are gamers, women, are full-fledged human beings. I mean, weird to have to, try to say that, but so the reality can't be ignored, and so now we have a lot of women in different uh, um, levels of the industry, a lot of strong voices, a lot of strong women creating female-centric gaming communities, and also being a lot more vocal about requiring their spaces not be misogynistic, and requiring the spaces be spaces that acknowledge the reality of women as fully fledged gamers and humans, and that they shouldn't have to put up with any microaggressions in their gaming.
Well, also, okay, so now speaking on the industry side, what about as, say, the publisher side and the games you put out or who you look to market to and sell to? Is there any consideration of, say, male, female, higher income, lower income? Like, do any of those kind of decisions, whether it's socioeconomic or gender or racial or whatever, but do they go in any decision of how games are distributed or even perhaps maybe even designed?
Well, for us, we've always been very everyone's invited around the table. We don't operate on any kind of exclusive, like some people try to lure you to the brand by the exclusivity of the brand. And we've always been like, the door's open, we got a fire burning in the fireplace, we got a table set, come eat with us, come play with us, and so we've always tried to have a price point that allows for everyone, to join in, so we try to keep our price points at 40 or under, and as low as humanly possible, with our costs in mind. We've only had one game that's been, over that's been $50, and that's kind of the exception. So we really try to, we're very price sensitive when it comes to, like, if we're trying to be accessible, we're trying to be the gateway company, we need a price point that's accessible, and that invites everyone in, so that's definitely a consideration. And so with game design also, we've moved toward trying to make sure that the art is inclusive. Castle Panic originally was basically, except for the monsters, it's white males, and we were actually kind of horrified when we realized that. Justin did all of the art at the beginning, and it was very crunch. I was very, like, upset that he hadn't done more, so it was extremely quick. I think he did all the art in like a month, and so we were just like trying to crank that out. So we made mistakes with that, which have been hard to, like, kind of correct, which we're trying to do right now with the Kickstarter, which we're having to relaunch because people wanted all of the expansions included in that. But we were able to show the direction that we're headed with my first Castle Panic, and to show the diversity in the characters there. And so we'll get there. It's just like, it's hard when you've got a train moving that fast, to make all of those, corrections. And especially with all the expansions and everything. That's why we've been slower with the expansions, because we want, it's like, we need to, like, fix what we started, and then apply that throughout, and then we can start, having expansions that, that show the diversity and reflect our values. And And so, but yeah, with the other games, you know, we've starting with the second game, you know, we were able to have, like, we showed diversity from the second game on out, you know. So so yeah,
Interesting point you bring up, because I'm sure that happens to a lot of designers, publishers, or whatever, where inherently it's something they may not be thinking of or being proactive about. For example, Justin's a white male, so it's probably natural for him to make his characters white males.
yeah.
So what do you think needs to happen? Or like, maybe you can maybe tell me about your realization, you two, when you came to that realization. But what do you think needs to happen maybe to other publisher designers, where they do need to become proactive about adding diversity? And it may be nothing like intentional or not, you know what I mean? They're not doing anything to exclude. It's just they're not being proactive doing it. So what do you maybe offer advice to people, and maybe you can relate that to your realization and coming to that and how you're moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's getting more diverse eyes on it, and more diverse uh, people who are involved in the making and the development. You know, so in, you know, in art, if you're outsourcing art, you know, making sure that you have, you know, artists that have diverse backgrounds, so that they're helping you to keep an eye on, you know, on diversity. And actually, with that, it also comes down to kind of particulars, you know, like making sure you don't, like, we have this berserker character, you know, and I'm like, you know, there are certain uh you know, characteristics, you know, that you know, you can't have like a woman being a berserker, like they're called crazy too much to have, you know. And so you want to, like, think about the implications of the character and the emotions of that character, you know, as well as as you know, it's not just the color of the skin and the gender, you know, it's insinuations about character, you know, that come into play. So I think having, you know, more eyes, more diverse eyes on it, so you get that feedback. Uh, and honestly too, just like, even if you're a white male, you know, you can start with, at this point, you know, you don't need anyone to tell you, you know, that you need diverse, you know, you need mixed genders and mixed races, you know, like, you don't need to be told that. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, where you're coming from. Start with that, and then having, you know, more diverse inputs around kind of precision and implications, you know, and not just, you know, I don't think it's enough anymore just to have the representation. You have to be conscious of what you're saying. Yeah.
No, absolutely. But what do you think of the causality? Because, you know, probably when you first got in the industry, maybe 20, 30 years ago, when you look out at the crowd at, say, a Gen Con or a big convention, it's going to be majority white male. So if you're, say, a publisher or designer, you may be just thinking, you know, subconsciously or even purposely, well, that's my audience, that's my crowd, that's who I need to sell to or design for. So it may have been a little bit of that too as well, right? But now when the crowd and the audience has become more diverse, now I think it is imperative now that they do cater to more of a diverse crowd.
Yeah, I think that the trick, I mean, the point of representation is seeing yourself in it, you know. And I think as long as anyone can see themselves in the representation, you know, like the full cast doesn't have to be all white males, you know, for it to be approachable for white males. You know, you can have one white male character, you know, and that's the one that they're, you know, that they may be relating to. And then you've got, you know, other characters with other um, uh, um, diverse features, you know, that you're able to, you know, connect with, and making sure that, you know, that people can see themselves in the games.
Yes, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Because yeah, it is good. And I think, you know, with this, what's going on in society now and how it's changing, that, you know, we are just a microcosm of society, the gaming industry, and we reflect all of it. From anything that happens out in the world happens the same thing to us in the gaming industry too, right?
100%, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit where, you know, I get the whole point where people, hey, I just want to play a game, I want to do this. Yes, that's great. However, there still is life around us. It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
aware
Yeah.
of it and
Yeah.
conscious because it does affect us in the industry.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are implications to how much everyone's able to enjoy that game. You know, if you have designed a game in such a way that your representations exclude people, it doesn't matter how much I say, my door is open, the hearth is up, you know, like sit down, let's, you know, and then I sit down and then like all it is microaggressions, you know, or no way for you to see yourself in the game and lose yourself in it and experience it and, you know, and feel welcomed by the game, you know, then none of the rest of that matters, you know.
That is very true. That is very true. So, all right. So let me ask you now. So where is Fireside going? What do you guys have coming up in the future?
So we just released Stringamajig, and so that one is basically a it's kind of like Pictionary meets charades with a string. So you have words and you're trying to act those words out with the string. So you're able to create the, you know, whatever the shape is, and then you're able to interact with the string to show how it functions. So it's what it looks like and how it functions. And super fun game. You can also play it remotely. So we've been playing with friends and you know, showing how to modify the rules for remote play, where not everyone has to have it. You can have just one person owns it and you know, have a fun experience. So that's our new release. And we're working right now. We had a Kickstarter that we started off a couple of weeks ago, and we ended up, I think 24 hours later, we decided to cancel that one so that we could work on a fuller one. The feedback that we were hearing quite loudly was that they wanted not just Castle Panic, the base game deluxified, but all of the expansions. They wanted to be able to play the full thing. Yeah.
Hold, stop right there. So that's kind of interesting. Like, I'm going to call it a mistake. It may not have been, I don't know, but I'm just going to ask you, why such a huge mistake? How did that happen?
Well, so we've never been on Kickstarter before. And so we didn't know, is our audience here? Like, we've been very successful outside of Kickstarter. So we didn't even know if, like, did people on Kickstarter know about Castle Panic, or like, do they care? You know, would there be any interest? And so we decided that because we didn't know the level of interest, we needed to contain costs by having different Kickstarters, you know, one for the base game, another, you know, and if that's successful and we see interest, then we'll, you know, do one with Wizard's Tower, and then build it out with each of the expansions, so that we're very careful about development, because each of those has its own cost structure. Right. So, you know, to build out the base game and 4 expansions, like that has a certain amount of cost to it. And if we don't have enough people interested in that full thing, then you know, we could end up losing money on it, you know, instead of you know, making anything. Right. And go ahead.
That's the thing. So I don't know whether it was a vocal minority or how many people, you know, like, you know, said they wanted this. So it's a huge gamble, as you say, you're about to undertake, right? To making sure you have the base game and expansions. So how do you determine that it's going to be successful now that or what came into the decision making that, okay, we know this is going to work, we will earn enough money. How do you arrive at that decision?
Well, we had enough people who were very vocal about wanting, you know, the full complement, that we looked at what that number was, what they were saying that they would be willing to pay for the full thing, and right now it looks like we would be. Yes, see, part of the problem is, you know, we don't have all the numbers, we don't have all the costs on all the other expansions, but we think, based on the costs for the base game, that it's likely, you know, that just on the interest alone that we'd had, just that we would be able to cover our costs for manufacturing for the full game. With all the expansions. So if everyone, you know, is being honest about, you know, what they say they would be willing to pay. So so now it's a matter of we're developing all of the art, and we need to get another sculptor on board to make the rest of the minis. But we're moving forward with production and development of all of that, and getting costing together to make sure that we know what it is that we would need to make to cover all of that. So
do you have an anticipated or a projected date that you expect for the Castle Panic full deluxe Kickstarter to come out?
not yet. We looked back at where we projected we would be, because we already had art going on Wizard's Tower before this, because we were thinking, okay, we'll have it ready to go for the next Kickstarter, if this is successful. And so based on that, we realized that we need to bring more artists on board, and because the rate that the current artists we're working on was going to be too slow, to get out a Kickstarter at a decent pace. So we're trying to right now get more artists on board and get a better sense of how quickly we can develop that art and get the new campaign together. But it's a lot of work, it's a lot of art, so we're having to project a lot with all the parts and pieces. So there's just so much for us to look at right now. We can't project a date, but as soon as we can, we will, for sure.
Okay. And so I know you've got this big project going on, and you just had Stringamajig coming out, but in general, how has the COVID-19, the pandemic, how has that affected you greatly as a business, since a lot of the conventions, and I don't know whether people are buying games. So can you just tell us a little bit about how that affects a company like Fireside Games, the current situation?
Yeah. So when distribution shut down, that side really went to like zero. But what we found was a lot of people then went to our website, and we had it, and we still have going on that people can get a 25% discount buying on our website, and then if they'll name a store, like their friendly local game store, and this was more important when game shops were shut down, and then we give them a 25% of whatever that purchase was. So that helped to make up for what we were losing in distribution, and we ended up making about I'd say probably about a quarter of what we usually make through distribution, so it didn't, it was still pretty slow. Yeah. But sales increased with Amazon. People were, making more purchases on Amazon. So that, kind of helped make up on that side some. And it's really, I don't know, we were being more cautious, to start with, because our plan this year anyway had been, Kickstarter for Castle Panic, Deluxify the game, and Stringamajig, the new game. And so we, our plans were just like, let's put all of our marketing focus behind those two things, and then, just drive those home. And we've had so much attention on Castle Panic and so much interest in sales, increasing on that and my first Castle Panic so much that, it makes sense to just go back to that, that brand, that property, and make sure that we're filling that out. Justin's working on another expansion for Castle Panic. And yeah. So, so we're trying to do that and, get the Kickstarter together at the same time. We also have a game, Hot Shots, that was quite popular in 2017, I think it was. And so we've had a lot of fans and retailers ask us to get that game, back on the market. So we're planning on getting together an expansion and relaunching that one. We'll probably relaunch it as a Kickstarter because it's such a great platform for, marketing. And, that one doesn't have all the risks and costs and everything that, 3 expansion, probably 4, our plans are, because we can't come out with another expansion for Castle Panic. I mean, the whole idea with, this new art and this expansion and everything was to safely roll out, new look and feel for the game, that was more diverse, and you know, so that then we can start building on the world again, you know. And and so we have now the, you know, this like pent up design, and so we can't like roll out this, you know, deluxe thing and not have this other expansion. So we're also having to not only, you know, develop this Kickstarter with the expansions, but then also with this other one that we're developing, you know, and trying to figure out the relaunch, you know, with that. So but as soon as we have that, you know, I mean, that's, I feel like a snake that's, you know, trying to swallow a rat, you know. So as soon as that one I've digested that one, you know, we can look at, you know, hot shots and getting that back on the market. So
Wow, sounds very good. So it sounds like there's a lot of exciting things coming up for Fireside Games, and I know we're all looking forward to it because it's an absolutely great company. I love Castle Panic. I know it's a lovely, great game. But because we just got a little bit of time left, and there's a couple of things I just want to ask you real quick. So outside of Fireside Games, you have a game night. What kind of games do you like to play? What are some of your favorites?
so some of my favorites, I mean, it's an older one now, but you know, Splendor is just like such elegant design, you know. I love Azul. I love Sagrada. um, uh, you know, I really love kind of that mid-weight game. I love Quacks of Quinlanburg, you know. And um, so, you know, some of the games that kind of just hit that nice, you know, mid-weight feel that I feel like that I can develop strategy, and that all of uh, the rules are kind of you know, easy to you know, bear in mind throughout the games uh, that, you know, kind of the heavier weight games that, you know, you have to kind of take on kind of an exploratory mode, you know, and you have to play over and over and over again, you know, to really, you know, start to grasp the strategy. Those are less appealing to me, I think, because I'm so busy. I don't have as much, you know, time to invest in, you know, the number of plays it takes to master the strategy, you know. So, but the midway game, I feel like, you know, I've got the time to be able to like, oh, okay, you know, I see how all this works and fits together. I can develop a strategy and, you know, and try to execute on that. So yeah, those are the games that appeal to me the most.
Oh, very good. Well, Anne Marie, thank you so much. It's been an absolutely wonderful time speaking to you. I really appreciate you doing this. Please give my best to Justin.
Sure.
Yeah, and I really hope that you know, your Castle Panic. Well, not hope. I know it will be successful. The deluxe box with everything in it now, which is very good. String-a-ma-jig. And is there anything else that we should know about Fireside Games before we close that's coming up in the near future that anybody can look forward to?
Well, one of the things that we're going to start doing is having string-a-ma-jig play nights. It's been so much fun playing with friends and working that out, that we're going to start kind of a virtual tour where people can, you know, we're known for, you know, touring game stores and that sort of thing. And so we're going to build out a program. I want to work with, you know, some different stores and yours also, and see if we can work out you know, working with your, you know, your patronage and having a virtual tour together. So that's something that we have developing that's going to be coming your way.
Well, I will be right there, willing and ready to do it. So please just let me know. Well,
Excellent. Thank you.
again, Anne Marie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you take care, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks so much, Tim.
All right, well, everybody, that was our talk with Anne Marie Dewitt from Fireside Games. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. All right, stop recording.